Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge or, in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people,
which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you, and we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara, life coach, wife, and mom to 4 incredible and unique children. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and confidence that once felt so lacking. I created the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves feeling trapped and with no one who really understands. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle your ability to dream. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you are a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Hello and welcome to the Special Needs Mom podcast. I'm so glad you're here. So today's episode is a part 2 of a conversation that was previously released on September 13th. So the podcast episode that went live September 13th was the first part of this conversation. So you may choose to go back and listen to that if you haven't. You can jump right in here if you like to just take a risk and jump right in. What I want you to know about this episode is that my guest chose to record anonymously. I mean, obviously, I know who she is, clearly, but we're not actually sharing her true identity. I like this. It sounds so mysterious. We're not sharing her true identity. Why? Because for her, she's like, I can be even more transparent. She's actually a very transparent person, and she's going to say it like it is, as I'm sure you know from part 1. But this allowed her even more freedom, and that's what she wanted to do. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. This episode is going to be obviously a continuation of the conversation, and we're going to jump right in. We're going to be starting to talk about support groups, and you're going to hear her before and after, and it's definitely a stark difference of where she started and where she is now. And to me, it is a story that shows what is possible for people when people lean in to exploring where they are, even when they feel so stuck, it feels impossible, that you can still create something totally different than you're experiencing now. And I don't know, it's kind of what lights me up. So I get really excited about it. And I think you will too, because I'm sure there's an area in your life that you feel like is impossible, or you don't want anything to do with it, or you can't get far enough from it. But perhaps if you're willing to kind of investigate and be curious and approach it through a different lens, which is essentially what coaching is, then you may have a different experience. And one thing that she is going to share in this episode is getting the right support. And for her, coaching was part of that support. It wasn't certainly the only thing she did, but she shares about like what it was like to be able to have this space that was curated by the coaching community that I happen to lead, and what it created for her, what it allowed her, kind of the gift it was for her. And so, yeah, this is a great plug, and yes, intentional, on sharing a little bit about the Pathway to Peace program. So as you listen to this episode, or even now, you're like, okay, I already heard about it, Kara. Like I heard you last episode, I heard you the episode before that, and I get it. You want me to explore Pathway to Peace. Yes, you're right. You're getting the message. And I want you to do this for yourself because you deserve it. You deserve to give yourself this kind of attention, this kind of care, and so does your family. And so my hope is that you will pause whatever you're doing and click on the link in the show notes to say, yeah, I want more information, or yeah, I'm willing to have a conversation, and to just explore it. You don't have to sign up at this point. There is no like, now you're stuck forever. It's very much, hey, if this is something that feels like the right thing for you to step into at this time in your life, then let's do it. And I'm here all the way to support you. So as you're listening to this episode, if you haven't already done it, I want you to consider, hey, what would it be like for me to step in just like Diane did and have a story just like her? Okay. Now that that plug is over, I also want to talk about the last part of the conversation really is around acceptance. And it is a powerful example of the power of acceptance. Many of you that I talk to are like very clear that you haven't accepted or truly accepted. And some of you think you've accepted, but you really haven't. Can't get into it now, but there's a lot of reasons why acceptance is so powerful. And again, this is a great reason to really work with somebody outside of your own brain so that you can kind of see where you're at. You can have your own story reflected back to you so you can see it in a way that actually empowers you to move on to the next step, whatever that is for you. Let's jump right here. You're going to jump right into the middle of the conversation where we left off 2 weeks ago. Enjoy the episode. So one of the things you were also very resistant to when we met was, like you said, anything to do with anything being special needs, mom, disability. You're like, nah, I don't want any more of that than I already have to have. I think you've changed a little bit in that area. First, what I want you to share, if you're willing, is like, why were you so resistant beyond just not wanting any more of it? What was it about community that's based around this identity as being a mom caregiver that you were not attracted to?
Well, I think part of it was she really didn't fit in any category. You know, she wasn't like diagnosed with Down syndrome. I can join all these Down syndrome groups with people who understand Down syndrome and the challenges. So we kind of had a rare genetic mutation situation. She was under the umbrella of autism, but I don't really think she was autistic. So I didn't really want to dip into the autistic world. Plus, there's such a wide range of issues that I felt like I couldn't relate to most of it. And it was the autism world so big and overwhelming, too overwhelmed already, and didn't want to take on something else. Plus, I felt like I had gone through so much with just learning about her issues that I kind of figured out an answer for her on my own. I didn't really look to other people to kind of figure out, what do I do about this? What do I do about that? I kind of had done that already, mostly with professionals. And then when I thought about a support group, which I probably did about 5 or 7 years ago, I was kind of open to the idea, but also I felt I pictured like a group of moms, you know, in an office in a circle, like complaining. And I just felt like maybe we should lift each other up and be like, oh, you know, you can do it. And we're not alone. And then I felt like, you know what, if I go to a group like that, all I want to do is bitch and whine and complain about how bad it is. And I'm going to bring everyone else down. And I have nothing good to say. I'm just going to be a negative Nancy. And I'm going to just bring the whole vibe down. And I'm going to be a complainer. And I can't not complain because I'm so angry and upset right now. I can't like pretend to be like all cheery and supportive and like, this is a gift and what a blessing and look in the ways we've grown and what, no. That was not my experience at all. And I kind of felt like I've got nothing good to add. And I don't want to hear people turning this into like a good thing or a blessing or how wonderful this is. Cause it's just, my life was just, it was hell. And I didn't want to hear that. And so that's what I felt like support would be. And I'm not really on social media. And the little I've done, I find that very actually depleting of my energy. And hearing other people's stories and just even questions or struggles, I have so much on my own. It doesn't help me. And I feel like it brings me down further. So I don't really like seeing that stuff or reading about it. Though, when I did your group, we all shared a subject matter, but ultimately we were talking about our feelings, experiences, and emotions in that subject matter. So let's just say, we all went to war and talked about our feelings of coming home from war. We all had a different experience in war, but we all can kind of respect that we have a glimpse enough of our own war to understand that it's complex, and we honor everyone's experience. And I really feel like we probably all have PTSD in different gradients based on our situation. It was totally different than what I expected. And I felt like everyone was very open and honest, like no one was sugarcoating anything. It felt like a very safe place to be totally raw and very open and totally transparent. And I think the beauty of Zoom or calls also create that level of separation and distance where there's a more of a comfort. I didn't know any of these people. I had nothing to hide or to be ashamed about or to whitewash. And I also felt like I had so much built up energy with everything I was dealing with that had zero vehicle. And it was an opportunity. I don't think I went on and on and on and overtook anyone's time. I think I was sensitive to that, but it was like a place where as I started to go, I felt like it's a place of release that felt like I wasn't puning anyone with any kind of like poison or negative energy or anything bad, but it was a place to kind of say it and release it, and get it out of my body and get that energy out and say it out loud and hear other people. And so every time I went, I got something from it, whether it was a release or a little spark of something we were thinking about or something someone else said or shared. And slowly, week after week, month after month, I saw the benefit in the release. And as special needs moms, as much as we're intaking is as much as we need to release. And the more we're going through, the more we have to let go of. And
beautiful. Yeah.
while we all need our own methods of doing that, meditation, physical exercise, I wish I were a pianist or a painter and I could get it all out with beautiful art. But, numbing yourself, me, it was mostly like, just like Netflix kind of TV stuff and food. It was a distraction, but it never made me feel better afterwards. But, having the sessions and looking forward to them, I ended them really feeling like, oh, life didn't change, but that release gave me something. And hearing the other people sharing their struggles gave me something of like, you are less alone in this. And that other issue that she's talking about also sounds very challenging, putting things in perspective a little bit and hearing the compassion. And so little by little, I started getting kind of rejuvenated. It took the edge off the burden I was carrying. It was a little bit of light and it provided a little bit of neutrality and balance. And I saw the benefit of the release in a place that totally understood. I mean, I could say all this stuff on a mountaintop and it wouldn't feel the same. I could say it to my family and it wouldn't feel the same. I could say it on social media, it wouldn't feel the same. In order to have a true release, you need to be able to share it in a space with people who are completely paying attention and attentive and listening to you and completely understand. Like I kind of make that war analogy where you are and what you're going through.
What's interesting is I hear you revisit the experience. Part of, the work and most work of moms that have the life that we have is a lot of grief, constantly evolving grief, we call it. And that one misconception that a lot of Americans have about grief is that you're supposed to go off in a corner, private, alone, and just take care of it by yourself. And it's actually very much the opposite. The way that grief really works and breathes and evolves is actually in community. And so I think that along the way with all the other things, you had this space where you were being held with exactly where you were at and accepted and loved and held up, right? Like just how you were. So I think that's the experience that you're describing. You've changed your tune as it comes to support groups, so much so that now you have taken on the role of leading a support group. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's kind of funny, isn't it? So I moved and, you had gone, through a difficult time with Levi and
Mm-hmm.
shared basically all the support you had at different phases and different communities. And I was just like, damn, Kara, I was just so blown away by all these people and groups. And like, I was just really like both intimidated and amazed and astounded and like in disbelief that you had such a multiple, it seemed like, different support groups or support, systems in place. And you had shared about how important that was, how critical that was, and how helpful that was, especially because you have other children as well. And I felt like, man, that is key. And that's really important. And I have nobody, like nobody who would understand the level of this and kind of step in and help, especially when you're talking about a crisis situation that's not a couple of days, but it's a time. And then through the group and seeing how the support of other people can really be emotionally helpful, even though, look, at the end of the day, we're going to the appointments, we're in the hospital, we're, in the middle of the night up. And in many ways, we're doing it alone. We are the ones who are doing it alone. But having that emotional support and those check-ins and helping them with other things when all the stress is so depleting of energy, those can be little lights to keep us going because we have that support. And so you kind of modeled that and the benefit of it and shared how it helped. And I totally bought into it and I believe it. And I know it's true, both from our group and just, from kind of how I've continued on. And so when I moved, the first thing I thought is, I would love, now that we're back in person, and I want to meet people anyway, because I'm new and I kind of have that, you're energized when you first move somewhere and meet people, other special needs moms who are looking for community specifically for the purpose of sharing their experience. And what I love about the group, it's through an organization. They are very clear in the beginning that nobody is here to offer opinions or to make any suggestions or recommendations. That is not what this group is about. What this group is about is sharing what you want to share, or just listening, or just observing. We are not here to fix anyone or to make anything easier. It's often hard to hear the hard things that people are going through. It's hard to hear it. And we naturally want to say, oh, have you tried? Do you know?
Mm-hmm.
How about, and you have to stop yourself and just say, okay, I'm just here to be a witness
Mm-hmm.
to your life, like you did in your group and in a person. And so it's interesting. At first, I wanted to do things that were very energy giving to me and energizing. And the first couple of times I kind of felt like it was a little draining and maybe I didn't know if I wanted to continue.
Mm-hmm.
But the first couple of sessions, and I don't know what these women did before this group, maybe they had nothing, maybe they had something, but they all had so much to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of myself when you bottle this up for years and years and years and you have no vehicle to put it in. It's like at every turn, I thought someone was just going to say, oh, this is my kid's name, the situation. But no, everybody wanted to say their whole story and they wanted to share their whole kind of experience. And I reflected on that and said, oh, they want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be heard. They have something to say that nobody understands and gets, and they don't even attempt to share. And they're here, and it's been X amount of years. And they're asking, will you listen to my experience in, again, this war analogy, in this war, in this battle? And when we gave the green light, everybody just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Just let it go. After a couple of times, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm serving a need that these people have to release, just like you did for me, right? And after a couple more times, and you get a flow with any group, right? The energy balances, and it is much more of a reciprocal energy, giver, receiver, because we're all both speaking and also listening to each other. So now I don't know that I would ever stop, because without it, where would people go? And they have to have this release. So the more I've kind of, I guess you would say, the buzzword, lean into it, the more I acknowledge how in demand and necessary this is for our community and how special it is. And if you try one and it doesn't connect, maybe try a different group. But when you find the right place for a release, and also, to hold someone else's story, it's very powerful for
I love
both
those
parties.
words. Yeah, to hold someone's story, just like you just said, is actually a gift for both people. Oh, so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I just love the full circle. And for me, knowing that the work I got to do with you led you to the work that you're continuing to do, and now to being part of who I was for you, for other people. That's my life purpose being fulfilled. So thank you so much. And the other thing I think is just so cool to look at is, if I look at early conversations, you had a very low level of belief. It was there that you could eventually have the care team for your daughter that you wanted to have that would actually allow you a little bit of that breathing room. And you went so far. I love this example. You went so far from moving states. So when we started working together, you lived in one state. Now you live in another. And I think it's cool to share that you went with intention. The reason you went to this state was for the care that you could have access to. So when I heard from you, I don't know how long ago it was now, but that it was working, that your team was coming along, that you were getting the support that you needed. I don't know. That was a really, really happy message to get. So share a little, if you will, about building your belief in that, deciding it was possible, searching it out, creating it, and then ultimately now having it.
It was a huge reason why we left. But as any mom knows, especially when you have severe issues with a kiddo and you're leaving everything you know and all the doctors and the teachers and the professionals and the insurance, and it's super scary, because the truth is, no matter how much research you do, you have no idea what you're going to get somewhere else until you're there. And then I don't want to say stuck. I guess you can always move back, but it takes a lot of courage to do that, because there are no guarantees. But what I can tell you is, in my research, because we distinctly looked to see where we're going to move based on her needs and the services that we need. And again, we're an extreme case. I was in disbelief at how some states treat our population.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm very much a conservative in all ways, and I do not believe in waste or fraud or, any of the stuff that goes on with the government when it comes to services and public accommodations for disabled and all that. The most compromised and discriminated population are our most severe disabled people, both children and adults, and they are the ones without a voice. And to research what states are doing an adequate level of support, an increased burden they put on the families, is just really unfathomable. And that was shocking to me. And I do believe reprehensible. However, there are 50 states, and there are some that do it differently. And so now being in a place that fully supports her and her needs and the services, so that she has what she needs, these are basic needs for her, has been completely life-changing. And while we left our family and all the things we knew and a lot of good stuff, because my life and our life was so consumed by Emma, when her life got better, all of our lives got better. And even our extended family, who didn't want us to leave, can see how much better everybody is doing and thriving and growing, including Emma. And Emma did so well when we moved. And I'm like, oh my God, she was stuck. She was bored. She needed to be invigorated. She needed something new. And because her situation is so extreme, there were really few options for her. And I don't look that as a slight on where I lived. There are few options for her anywhere in the country. But she was also not growing and evolving and thriving at a time where I really needed to maximize all the therapy and all the services because of her age. And so she really blossomed. I was really scared about the change and all the, just all the newness, everything and every part of her life. And she just blossomed. I was honestly shocked. And so now that I'm in a supported place, I feel like a human being again. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it really feels true. And I would say that there's a lot of fear that we have in losing what we know, but there is so much to be gained in an environment that can support you. And when I say you, it's really your kid, right? If you are the net and you're doing everything, then you need a community that's going to support you so that you can not be doing it all alone. Even though it's uprooting everything, if your life is being significantly impacted by your child's needs that are not getting served, then it's possible you're not in the right place. And the biggest kind of image I have is I'm very aggressive and I can be a zealous advocate. And I was pounding and pounding and pounding on the door where I was. And I was angry and I was frustrated and I was mean and I was, using swear words because I wasn't getting the services I needed for her. And you know what I heard? Sorry, my apologies. I understand. I'm sorry. And I was just sick of it, frankly. Everybody just had no help and no answers. And meanwhile, I was stuck. And then I moved and everything changed. And not to say, this is not the end of the rainbow here. We're still in it. But the analogy and the image I have is I was knocking, like crazy on the door. I needed to knock on a different door. Like we say in the law, you're trying to get blood from a turnip. I was never going to get what I needed, no matter how much I turned blue in the face and pulled out my hair out of frustration. And I knew I had all the documents to show she needed what she needed. But I was just getting sorry. You're right. She does, but we can't, or we don't have it, or, whatever it was a no. So once I moved doors, it was all different because I was just focused on the wrong door. And I didn't know that until I left. And I realized, I don't have to fight so much. And there's more of a system in place here that fits my needs and her needs and our support. Once you get a little bit of possibility and a little bit of freedom and a little bit of a break and a little bit of support, it just kind of adds and adds and adds and adds. And you start to kind of release more and open more and exhale and realize, I have a life outside of caring for her and fighting for her. And it's been completely life-changing. I hope I age slower than I have the past 10 years with her, now that I have more support, because it was sucking the life out of me. And I would say that's a real consideration, as dramatic as it is. If your kiddo is your life and their needs are impacting your life significantly, then you need to be in a place where you are supported and your kid is supported. It's been a significant difference in the quality of all of our lives. All of our lives have been affected by that additional support.
So all y'all listening can now know it's possible. It is possible. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's easy, but I think hearing the story for me is just, it's invigorating. It is exciting because I'm thinking in my own life, what am I afraid to let go of or change or shift? Because your words were perfect. Like, it's letting go of what you know is really scary. So thank you so much for sharing all of it. That's one thing myself and of course our fellow group members love about you, is that you don't hold back. You have the energy and the fierceness, just this fierceness that I think is unstoppable. And to the point that you realized, different door, and you kept going. I just love it. Is there anything you want to say as we wrap up and we close out this episode?
I guess the last thing I want to say is, while moving sounds very dramatic, I got to another place, which was, I was incredibly dependent on care. And I had to just sit with myself and say, you're going to have to expect care is not going to show up. Care is not going to do what they need to do. And care is going to leave unexpectedly and be unreliable from now till eternity. So if you know that, stop getting upset about it and figure out plan B when you get that call for the, millionth time of a family emergency, my car doesn't work, I'm sick. Like, we've heard it all, right? In this expansion of thought that you've taught us, I finally went to plan B and C. I said, you know what? I need to go to the psychiatrist and say, doctor, when we're in a bad place and I have no support, I need medication to tranquilize her as needed in order to manage both her safety and mine. And in critical situations, I need that. I also said to my husband, you know what? We need to talk to state services and completely change her room. While she has a mental disability and not a physical disability, we need accommodations in her room so it's safe. So if I need to walk away, I know she's not going to get hurt. So whatever that's, padding, cameras, equipment, whatever. So I started to think outside the box of how do I figure out the care? How do I figure out the care? And realize, okay, you know what? Let's accept care is not going to come. Then what? And when you have a baby and you can put the baby down in the crib and you know the baby's safe and walk away, it allows you to recalibrate to address an urgent issue like poop all over the room or glass on the floor, right? When you have no safe place for a child who is a danger to others and themselves, what do you do? And so I guess the invitation from that is, even though it sounded ridiculous to me to have a complete accommodation for her room for a mental disability, I finally got to the point where I realized it was necessary. Even though it seemed crazy to me to talk to a doctor about medication to tranquilize my kid because of behaviors, when I realized that she was being completely unsafe and I had an urgent issue and I had no place to put her, what are my options? And I thought, you know what? What's a hospital going to do? What's a group home going to do? They'd come up with an alternative. And so you really kind of need to release every single notion you have of what you can and can't do and just think beyond, especially when you're running into a wall that's driving you crazy, like the caregiver situation. And you just implement more and more support in ways you may have never imagined, but you're at the end and you realize, I don't want to be here, but this is where we are. And if I'm going to expect this is going to happen, what's my plan B? So the biggest added takeaway I want to share is just come up with your plan Bs, expect to need them, stop banging your head against the wall when you're disappointed time and time again, expect it, and then what? So that if a caregiver calls out, I don't lose it. And I realize, okay, all right, I've got the support. We've got this figured out. I've got plan B, I've got plan C, we're going to be okay. And maybe we don't need any of that. But if we do, it's there. And having that emotional support of knowing I have my plan B and C in place, I can get through this, makes life so much easier because you're not waiting for that next ball to drop and you already have a plan in place when it does, because it will. And that expansion of thought is part of that possibility, we talk about in group coaching of really opening it up and saying, what else and what next? And being open to all those possibilities that you may have never considered before.
Yeah. And the key that unlocked all of that for you was this acceptance. For you finally, like you said, to say, okay, so I'm not going to get the caregiving that I should have, that should be available and all the things, just allowing it to be what it was. So beautiful illustration on the power of acceptance and how it opened the door for you in a really, really empowering way. Well, Diane, you know how big of a fan I am, and I'm so thankful for the privilege of witnessing your evolution, your growth, your energy, your fervor. And I'm so thankful that you are part of our community and get to be a model for others, for some of these ladies that are kind of where you started, where it just feels so dark and hard and heavy and they feel trapped. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes, get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.